Maybe you're out for an hour or 2 hours, maybe several hours. Most of the time you come back from the photography session and you don't have a decisive moment photograph. Sometimes you do. So what's the difference between a session that leads to a good photograph, a decisive moment photograph, and one that doesn't? Well, here's something interesting that Cartier-Bresson said. I kept walking the streets, high-strung and eager to snap scenes of convincing reality, but mainly wanted to capture the quintessence of the phenomena in a single image. It was that phrase, high-strung and eager, that made something click inside of me. I thought immediately of a paper, a famous paper written by the psychoanalyst Ernst Christ, in which he talked about the good hour in psychoanalysis. The good hour in psychoanalysis, he thought, was a metaphor for the good hour in the creative process in art and in photography. The good hour starts off with a person feeling some kind of emotion, high-strung and eager, or some kind of anxious anticipation. It could be frustration, it could be self-doubt. The session starts off with that feeling, and that feeling is really the tip of the iceberg. There's something going on in the unconscious mind. There's subconscious incubation taking place. Previous memories and experiences and ideas and feelings are starting to crystallize into a new insight that's not yet conscious. But in psychoanalysis, the analyst says something, or in photography, the scene presents something to the person where suddenly what was previously forming subconsciously springs to the surface. And that is when the photograph is taken. It's that aha moment, that decisive moment of clarity. And it's very different than what Chris called the pseudo-good hour in psychoanalysis, which has its parallels in doing photography. The pseudo-good hour in psychoanalysis for Chris is when the patient is working really hard to have an insight. I want to have a good insight because I want to please the analyst. I want to be a good psychoanalytic patient. I want to feel good about myself, about making progress. And often, it results in some insight, but it's not really the juicy insight, not the one that really comes from deep within the person. So, if you're going out to take photographs and you're worried about getting lots of likes for, getting a good grade in your photography class, or becoming famous, you want to be a famous photographer, that desire is just going to get in the way. Here's where decisive moment photography overlaps a lot with what people call therapeutic photography. Doing photography, not to accomplish any particular goal, but just for the sake of doing it because you learn about yourself, you discover something about yourself, you express something about yourself through the scene, through the people that you're photographing. Okay, so those are the 8 components, 8 issues, 8 features of decisive moment photographs. Is there any one photo that addresses all of those issues? Well, if it does, it's probably going to be a great photograph. Even the puddle jumper was cropped, so that doesn't quite make it. But in outlining all these 8 features, you don't want to get carried away with too many rules about what decisive moment photography is. You don't want to get bogged down in thinking about criteria. If you're going to go out and do photography, and in the back of your mind, you're going to be thinking about all these things that I said tonight, it's just going to wreck it. It's going to wreck your attempt to get a decisive moment photograph. Maybe in some ways it's something that's elusive, that can't really be defined. It's like what Justice Potter Stewart said about pornography. I don't know how to define it, but I know it when I see it. And you'll often have that feeling about photographs that you look at. Some of them will just immediately strike you as being, yes, this is a decisive moment. It gives me that aha experience, that feeling of yes, 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 this is it. Even though I can't quite verbalize what it is, this is it. When I was talking to Dick Zaki about decisive moment photographs, he said, this was only like 2 months before he died, he said, more and more, I'm beginning to think the photos that have taken on a life of their own must be the decisive moment. And I think that's true, especially of famous photographs. Photographs where maybe you don't even, like some of Cartier-Bresson's photographs, where maybe not even sure what the historical context was. And I think he himself too, I think his photograph went beyond the historical context. It's pointing to something archetypic, something universal, something that all humans can relate to. And it takes on a life of its own in the sense that different people in different times are going to look at it and find their own meaning in it within the parameters defined by the photograph. So I think there's a lot of truth to what Dick said there in that quote. I think there's one thing I would add to it is that it's your decisive moment. As I'm talking about this stuff tonight, probably a lot of you are thinking to yourself, that photograph I took, I think maybe that was a decisive moment. Well, ask yourself, did you capture a unique moment in time that will never happen again? Does that photograph point to something essential, something important about the person in that photograph or about that situation? Whatever is captured in that photograph, does it go beyond that person or situation and point to something more universal that many people, maybe all people, can relate to? When you took that photograph, did it create in you, did it allow it to express in you some particular feeling or experience that is essential in how you define yourself and your life? If so, then it's a decisive moment photo. Because like Cartier-Bresson said, it's not about photography, it's about life. So I'm open to questions or comments at this point.